Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Yesterday, Joe Blow, a popular YouTube channel, and I believe they also have a website, broke a news story about the upcoming Batman v Superman story. They claim to have a leak inside the production, and so they got news on both Batman's pad, they were calling it, Lex Luthor, why he's upset with Superman, and then I think the most interesting leak they claim to have gotten were details about Wonder Woman and her costume and her weapons. And the way the character's coming together, I think, is intriguing, but yet still a little bit worrisome. But I want to say that I think one of the reasons that Wonder Woman is worrisome is not just because of what they're doing in the cinematic universe. This isn't just all hanging on Zack Snyder and Gal Gadot and David Goyer and Chris Terrio, who's also working on the script thanks to Ben Affleck's insistence. The problem that I have, and I think a lot of people might have, and one of the main thing that's worrisome, is that the Wonder Woman character is very difficult to like. Not a particularly popular character beyond what she stands for. I think if the feminist movement hadn't co-opted her, I believe back in the 70s, she was on the first cover of Ms. Magazine, Wonder Woman wouldn't be as well known as she is today. It's not great storytelling that made Wonder Woman, a mainstream, commodity, something that the mainstream is aware of. It's that she was co-opted by the feminist movement. It's more what she stands for. And I think that's a problem that's plagued the character for quite some time. She's become more like, Santa Claus or something, where she has to stand for certain aspects and therefore can't go in a certain area. She has a little bit of a problem that Superman does with the whole Boy Scout angle, but of course Batman, because he's so tormented, I think he's a little bit more free reign of being fallible. But I think they don't want to have Wonder Woman make any mistakes because she's ended up standing for all of feminism. So the character's just difficult, and I think that sometimes her comic works, sometimes it doesn't, but I don't think it's ever been great. I don't think anyone's been like, wow, that was an amazing Wonder Woman story, like Batman Year One or the Dark Knight Returns, even Superman, Red Sun, Man for All Seasons, Superman for All Seasons. All these different great classic stories for Superman and Batman have existed, and even some great, alternative ones. The Earth One stories are very popular with Batman and Superman. I particularly liked Batman Earth One, but Wonder Woman, she hasn't had an Earth One story yet, and I suggest that maybe DC consider getting one for her. But I was once at an event talking to someone from DC, and they admitted that even within the company there is a division on how to depict the character of Wonder Woman, which is why she isn't clearly depicted, even on the page where she originated. So it's a very tricky character, and so let's see what Zack Snyder and company seem to be doing with her. I guess if you're going to be curious about the other things that they leaked for Batman, apparently he lives on a sleek apartment, like a one-story house on the Wayne estate that leads to the Batcave. He does not live in Wayne Manor. I have some problems with that because, of course, Wayne Manor is his parents' home, his father's and mother's home, and of course, his whole life is defined by his strong connection to him, his sense of loss that never goes away. I think one of the reasons Joel Schumacher did such a poor job with his Batman movies is he felt at a certain point Batman would just get over it, and it's like, well, if he got over it, he'd stop being Batman, right? So making him live in a different house, you're not going to have, maybe they will, but I really like the classic entrance to the Batcave being changing the hands on a clock, and I believe it's usually the study to the exact minute of the Wayne's murder. I think that's very telling and I think very poetic. I really always like that element, and I'd hate to see it be lost in this new sleek pad. Maybe he sets a digital clock to it. Who knows? We'll see. And then, of course, the Lex Luthor problem, the rumors is that apparently he's going to have long red hair to start. I guess he'll lose it during the movie. Maybe he'll get kryptonite poisoning, we'll see. But apparently Lex Luthor feels that he is the prime specimen of humanity, and he doesn't like being shown up by this Kryptonian. Although, you're not competing at the same level, Lex, obviously. Maybe you guys could be friends, form your own little mini humanity league, I guess. We'll see. But I think that that's not that much of a surprise because that's usually what Lex Luthor's beef is with Superman. So let's get on to Wonder Woman, which I felt was the interesting aspects to the character. Now, some people had thought and hoped that she would have an updated look. I've often said, but will she wear pants? Because I feel it's important that the character wear pants. But it looks like Warner Brothers doesn't agree with me. And she's going to wear a blue skirt, like a blue leather skirt, the red bustier, a variation of that, and then she's going to carry, she'll also have the tiara. They said may or may not have a red star on it, and then she's going to carry 4 weapons. One will be, I don't know how you can carry 4 weapons, by the way, so I'll be curious to see how she does this. But she's going to have a shield, and they said that the rumor is she's going to have the shield on her back when she's not using it, a la Captain America. And I think that's very cool the way Captain America wears his shield, and I think it would be cool on Wonder Woman, save for the fact she stole it from Captain America. So that's one weapon she'll have. She'll also have her sword, and I hope it's like a really cool, long, badass sword. I'm really upset, and I believe I've mentioned this before, and in the New 52, they've given her like this stunty, like, lady sword, I guess, and I really hate it. It's almost like a dagger, and it just doesn't look cool. You know, when she draws that, you're like, did you just grab like a letter opener off your desk and go into battle with it? I mean, I guess if she's handy with it, that could be awesome, but I want her to have an actual sword. I mean, it can be thin, so it's a little more wieldy. I don't know. She comes from a fantasy island of Amazons. I'm sure they came up with some lightweight metal, you know, like that famous line in Thank You for Smoking. We'll just put a line of dialogue that explains why it's okay, with the cigarettes in space. Great line, still very funny, and we can use it for Wonder Woman. So she's got the shield and the sword. Then she's going to have a spear, which I think is pretty cool. I think it plays into her Greek ancestry. I think a lot of people have said, well, Wonder Woman's going to continue to wear a skirt. That could make sense because the Greeks, all Greeks, men and women, wore skirts, and as we've seen from 300, they wore them into battle, and also history, obviously, of course. So this spear could be neat. I don't know how she's going to get it back. I mean, you know, once you throw a spear, it's gone, unless she like ties her lasso to the end of it, which is her other weapon. Maybe she could tuck it in behind her shield. I'm just not quite sure, you know, how useful and, you know, realistic such a weapon would be for her to carry. I can get this sword, the sword, the shield, and the lasso, because the lasso ties to her belt, but the spear might be just going a little bit too far. We'll see. Although currently in the New 52, Wonder Woman's gauntlets, which she will also wear, by the way, apparently they're going to go up to close to her elbow, her gauntlets generate her weapons, or at least 2 swords, magically. And that's pretty cool, but I don't know how much they're going to use magic here. I don't know if Wonder Woman's going to be, you know, have the element of Greek mythology behind her, which I think they're using quite nicely right now in the New 52 comic story that's going on with her, although it's going to change to a more traditional story, I think, to get ready for this movie. But I like the, you know, it's almost like Fables, which is a fairy tale comic book in current times, with those characters brought up to current times. Well, I think Wonder Woman's been used quite well at the beginning of the New 52 with a comic book with Greek mythology in current times and what those gods are like and how they exist now. I think it's been very interesting, although Wonder Woman has been a bit overshadowed in her own comic. But the gauntlets were cool, but I don't know if they're going to go that direction in the movie. So what do I think of this costume? Well, I don't know. I can understand that maybe on Themyscira, the island where Wonder Woman is from, they've only known skirts because, you know, they're back from the days of ancient Greece. That's when they left mankind, or when this island was conceived by the gods, so they're only aware of that fashion sense. Although I think that as soon as Wonder Woman would come to man's world and see that the people were wearing pants, women as well, she'd be like, that's much more practical. I know that people argue that Greek and Roman warriors wore skirts as well, or tunics, I guess, if we're going to try to make them sound cooler. But at the same time, it's just not practical. I think that, you know, you have people looking up your skirt, and also with the bustier, how are you going to keep that thing up? Unless, of course, she really has magic tape to hold it up. I mean, I just think it's a costume that, you know, if you were to show any woman that she would have to wear it into battle, she'd probably maybe laugh at first and be like, good one. And then she'd probably get upset that you actually were making her wear it into battle. I mean, I know it's iconic, but I think that it's an obstacle for Wonder Woman in terms of being relatable to women today. Women today want to be part of the group. They want to kick butt, but they don't want to, you know, looking sexy while doing it isn't the highest priority anymore. It used to be like, well, I want to be on the battlefield just so I can look sexy on the battlefield, but I don't really want to fight anybody. Now women very much want to, be right alongside their male counterparts, as fans, and also, with their movie characters. I mean, Katniss does not wear a skirt. She doesn't show any cleavage ever. Very conservatively dressed character, and very popular. I think I really have been happy with what they did with Black Widow. Also largely conservative outfit and hairstyle. I mean, really practical hairstyle. I loved the short hair in Joss Whedon's Avengers, and it was a little longer in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. But again, she very little. She really wasn't wearing cleavage. I think like the happy medium here is skin tight outfits. We're like, okay, well we'll take away the cleavage, but she's wearing a skin tight outfit, and the guys are wearing skin tight outfits too. So it's fair and it works, and everybody's happy, both in terms of practical costumes and also for eye candy. So I really liked the way that Black Widow is developed, and that's another character that there was some concern, I think, would she be likable? Never a hugely likable character in the comics, never really developed, though, to be fair. And Scarlett Johansson, not always a likable actress. Her box office numbers in the past, before she joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe, were low. I heard stories about her being lowballed with her salary because she just simply wasn't worth anymore. But I've been pleasantly surprised, and I think a lot of people have been pleasantly surprised at just how good she is as Natasha Romanoff in these movies, to the point where a lot of us want to see that Black Widow movie. And I think that Lucy's getting a lot of hype because of everyone liking Scarlett Johansson so much in the role of Black Widow. And I hope the same for Gal Gadot. I hope she can pull this off. I really liked her in Fast 5 and 6. I thought she did a very nice job. I think she had some hurdles to overcome. It's always hard for models to transition into actresses. There's a self-awareness that's there. And some actresses, for instance, never get rid of it. Keira Knightley will be forever self-aware, is my guess. But I think that Gal Gadot is not. Gal Gadot wants to do a good job. She wants to be cool. And I'm just hoping that she does not also want to be sexy, because that's readable. You can pick that up. And I think if she's forced to wear a bustier and a skirt, I hope she just, once she's put it on, I hope she forgets about it instead of trying to pose and make sure she looks hot in it. I think people just want to see, I think this Wonder Woman will be most successful if she just kicks butt. And is very successful on the battlefield. And speaking of that, that's the other part of the rumor, is that Wonder Woman will be part of the big fight at the end of the movie with Superman and Batman. So this is really a Trinity film, which I think is interesting, and I wish that was played up more in the title. I would love to see people think Wonder Woman is a commodity, and especially if they're trying to get her own film, they should be playing her up as soon as possible, because she would be the first female superhero, I think, to have a big movie. I mean, there is Elektra and Catwoman, but those were small spin-offs. Wonder Woman would be a Batman, Superman, Iron Man level type of film. And Black Widow would too if they were to make that movie. So I'm cautiously optimistic about Wonder Woman. I hope Gal Gadot can pull this off. And I hope that, I was not very happy with the way that Silk Spectre was portrayed in Watchmen. I thought that Malin Ackerman, not a great choice. I think she was chosen more for her looks and her acting ability and her relatability. Sorry. And I think that the character was used more as, eye candy and a sex object than a really fully fleshed out character. To the point where, as you might recall, many of her lines from the comic were taken out and given to male characters, even though she was actually still in those scenes. And she could have easily said the lines, but for some reason they were like, let's have a guy say that. Very frustrating. And if you want to read a really good comic, go pick up, the Watchmen, the Before Watchmen. Those are a bunch of miniseries that came out about a year or so ago. Very good quality, and the Silk Spectre one was phenomenally well done. Darwin Cook wrote it, and Amanda Conner did the art, and it was a really good look at a female superhero origin story, and realistic having a woman in the lead. I thought it dealt with a lot of issues that a woman would have to deal with, and they kept the sexiness, but in a, as I said, relatable way. And make no mistake, if Wonder Woman's going to succeed on her own, and not just be annoying, if she's going to succeed as a character in her own movies, she needs to be relatable to women. So I'm curious to what you guys think. Guys, do you think, hey, as long as I like Wonder Woman, it's fine? Female viewers out there like myself, what does Wonder Woman need to be for you to not dislike her, for you to like her? And why do you think Wonder Woman hasn't worked so far? Why is she not a big selling property as a comic? And why is she not iconic beyond being commandeered by the feminist movement? All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story is a small story, and a lot of you were like, why don't you talk about this? And it's Nathan Fillion has been revealed that he will have a small cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy. Of course, he worked with James Gunn before on Slither, and Nathan Fillion has a lot of fans in the comic book community because of his work on Firefly, and then of course he was so good on that show that a number of people have said, oh, every time a role comes up, they're like, why isn't Nathan Fillion being considered? He could be Hal Jordan, etc. etc., etc. And to the point where, I'm sure Nathan Fillion, as I've said before, is a little annoyed that, he had to, keep working, so he kept taking TV gigs because that's what he could get, and he kind of boxed himself out of being the lead in a big Marvel movie. But Chris Pratt also comes from television, but didn't become as entrenched in the medium, so now he's getting the call to action to be a lead for this film, and I think Chris Pratt has a very bright future ahead of him in the movie business. But as for Nathan Fillion, I think the cameo is just a nice shout out to fans. This is if any movie can get away with a cameo like this, I think it is Guardians of the Galaxy because it's very tongue-in-cheek. There was some rumor that he would be playing Nova from the Nova Corps, like the main soldier, their Captain America, I guess you could say. But the reason that it came out that he has a cameo is James Gunn had to go and very quickly squelch that rumor and say he's not playing Nova, but he will appear in a fun way as a nod to our fans and Nathan Fillion's fans. And just because maybe James Gunn's like, I feel your pain, Nathan. You would be good as a superhero, but I think maybe to some degree, like John Hamm, they've too much time has passed where they haven't been called to action. They haven't been given that opportunity to prove themselves, and I think the studios are just too worried about their inability to bring in people to the box office. Because remember, Firefly the movie tanked, and Firefly the television show was canceled. So, Nathan Fillion, of course, is very popular on ABC's Castle. Marvel, of course, had a Castle comic because, ABC, Disney owns Marvel. That whole cross promotion within the company, that was, Nathan Fillion was able to promote that with Marvel. So he's been in the convention, the Marvel booth a few times. I got to actually interview him back when I was at Marvel. He's a very nice guy, but I just feel that he's just not lead material. He's too much. You can get to a point where you're just too much of a television star, and he unfortunately is a network television star. So maybe if Marvel ever does a TV show, maybe for the Netflix show, he should really be like, hey, you have a Danny Rand yet? An Iron Fist? Can I play somebody, please? All right, so I'm curious to what you guys think. Do you see where I'm coming from? I know we have a big bone of contention about this with TV versus movie actors, but do you understand someone becoming so entrenched in television that it's difficult? Look at Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston can't make the jump to movies. I think he had a good opportunity with Godzilla, but then we all saw how that turned out. But, he was in Total Recall, and I think he had a movie go direct to video opposite Alice Eve recently. And, the star of one of the biggest and most celebrated recent television shows ever is having trouble getting movie gigs. It's a hard transition to make, especially when you're so well established. The people who usually transition the best had small roles in TV that really just gave them a resume and an agent and connections, and then they made a name for themselves. Look at Chris Pratt, very small role on Parks and Recreation that not a lot of people really watched, and I bet you didn't even know he was on, I believe, Everwood. So that's the kind of good television career that gives him just enough exposure that he's a professional and somebody that Hollywood can utilize, but not so much exposure that they feel no one's going to pay to see you in a movie theater. All right, so that's the second story of the day. Now, the third story of the day, Sean H.K. asked me yesterday to please follow up on the Into the Woods story, and that Stephen Sondheim had been quoted as saying a number of changes had been made to his musical that he wrote with James Lapine in Disney's adaptation to make it more family friendly. So what Sean H.K. wanted me to cover is the fact that Stephen Sondheim, who must have gotten quite an angry call from the Disney company, went on damage control. And he made a statement to the public saying that the article in the New Yorker magazine was incorrect. Well, it quoted me out of context and from quite some time ago. And he wanted to clarify that he's very happy with the changes that have been made to his musical, and so is James Lapine, and that they worked with Disney to create the changes so that it had some level of authenticity still. He says now that when he's made those initial comments, he had not yet seen the film, but now he has seen it, and he really likes it. Of course, that's what he said. But he clarified that the prince and the baker's wife do get together. He didn't say exactly how. I think he said the dalliance was still there. It might just be a kiss, a tender moment, something like that. But speaking of moment, the song Any Moment, At Any Moment, is still within the musical, which was a big problem for a lot of people when news broke that it might not be. However, he didn't address the comments he made about Rapunzel not dying, and also the lack of lasciviousness between the wolf, played by Johnny Depp, and Red Riding Hood, Little Red Riding Hood, played now by Lila Crawford. If they're going to remove all the sexy innuendo from that relationship between the wolf and Red Riding Hood, it makes you wonder why they would not have just gone with their original choice of Sophia Grace Brown-Lee. But Lila Crawford is, teen, like preteen, so it's still a little sketchy, but why then go with the older actress? We'll see. We'll see what actually makes it to the big screen. But clearly I think that Disney gave Sondheim a call and said, what are you doing? You're shooting our musical on the foot before we even have a chance to get a trailer out, although where is that trailer, right? I think my suspicion it'll play in front of The 100-Foot Journey, the Helen Mirren film about cooking in France, because I think it's a similar audience, but we'll see. However, I'm curious to what you guys think. Are you calmed down? Do you feel better now about Into the Woods? Or do you think Stephen Sondheim is just towing the company line? Because, of course, I'm sure he has some gross participation and wants to see the film succeed. And although this is an excellent lesson that you should be very careful what you say at all times, because who knows when someone's going to dig it up and plaster it across the internet. And there still are changes made, and I think Stephen Sondheim's big thing, as he wanted to say, was I'm happy with this, and I've been a part of the process of making these changes. So if you trust me and James Lapine, you will be happy with the new product. So, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't understand why, as I said when I first covered this news about the changes, why would Disney adapt a property that they couldn't adapt as is? Because that's why it has a fan base. It's like saying at the end of Les Mis, something that happens to Anne Hathaway's character shouldn't happen to her. I don't want to give it away because someone here might not have seen Les Mis, but it's like, imagine if there was a PG or G version of that. It just would simply not work at the same level. And even if the song at any moment's there, you just lose some of its meaning if you downgrade the romantic encounter between the baker's wife and the prince. And also, they're doing so many live-action fairy tales, and they have the Once Upon a Time show, at the movies, and they have the Once Upon a Time show on ABC, and they have this upcoming The Descendants, children of, of animated heroes and villains going to high school together. If you're doing all these fairy tale spin-offs, where does Into the Woods exist, if not as a more adult, darker, somewhat meta version, right? All right, so those are the three stories of the day. Now, the question comes from Ching Arthur, and I thought this was a great question. And Ching Arthur says, "Hey Grace, I love your videos and the passion you put in every single one of them. Thank you. Here's a question I'd like to ask. Why are biopics such strong contenders during the Oscars award seasons? I, too, feel hard to resist any biopic, but other films also have strong elements in their films, and I feel are worthy of a nomination at the Oscars. Does it have anything to do with the judging panel? Hope you'll answer my question. It would mean so much. Oh, I forgot to put a smiley face." And then Ching Arthur put 2. Awesomeness. But, smiley face quotient sometimes gets my attention when I'm scrolling through, but really just writing question, and your question is what's important, because that's how I look for questions. I do a find on the window with all the comments looking for all the questions so I can just skip through to what people are asking. But I loved Arthur's question. I think it's really smart, and as to why are bios so popular when it comes to award season. And that's because I think it's a very clever way to get a little bit of extra oomph for your movie, and that's that you're not just celebrating a great film, but celebrating a great life. Margaret Thatcher, such a divisive character, historical figure, loved and hated. I'll never forget that when she recently died, people actually were saying, "Ding dong, the witch is dead," which I can understand people's anger with Margaret Thatcher, but to say that about anyone who's died is, quite telling. I would say horrible, but yet that's how fiercely people felt about the character. And of course, Meryl Streep went on to win an Oscar for her portrayal of Margaret Thatcher in The Iron Lady, which I thought was a very good movie. Excellent film, and I think she was deserving of the award. But also The Social Network with Mark Zuckerberg, and that's a bio that not only takes into account an individual, but an individual's accomplishments, the invention of Facebook and how much that's changed society. So that's why I think that they do so well, because you have a situation where you're not just pointing out the quality of the filmmaking, but it's a chance to acknowledge and give people remembrance of something that was done, or a person, people like the historical aspect. For instance, Argo. People loved Argo in Hollywood because Hollywood saved the day, and they thought that was great. Of course, they loved a movie where Hollywood, not just, they didn't just entertain you, but politically and with, actually saving American lives, they were instrumental. And so I think that's why that was a favorite with the industry. And also, but it didn't work with Mandela. Mandela, of course, the Idris Elba film from last year, even though Mandela has lived a wonderful life and he did sadly pass away right during award season, I think it wasn't at the level of what happened to Solomon Northup. And now by giving the award to Solomon Northup's film, the adaptation of his life story, 12 Years a Slave, now people will forever know, thanks to all those Oscar nominations, that'll become a film for the ages. It won't disappear. And, Solomon Northup's story, that's a way to ensure that it will always be known. So I think there's a lot of that, a lot of aspects of, doing the way they can to influence history on Hollywood's part to some degree. Also, Schindler's List, of course, wanting to acknowledge what Oscar Schindler did. So that's my answer to your question. What do you guys think? I mean, the award season, as you know, continues to be incredibly political. And do you think there will ever be a day where perhaps films are purely rewarded just for their quality and not, for actors jockeying and, behind the scenes, all the politicking there, and also, the very tempting chance to influence the way people see history. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and the viewer question, and anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.